There are three systems in the body that work together to regulate blood pressure. Okay, we've got the autonomic nervous system, the renal system, and the endocrine system. There are some external factors too that can affect blood pressure, but these three are the main three in the body that are going to regulate your blood pressure. So what are baroreceptors? These are little receptors that are located in the aortic arch and in the carotids, which sense the mean arterial pressure and send messages via the vagus nerve and the glossopharyngeal nerve to the brain to cause changes in the body, either a decrease in the size of the arteries so that we increase pressure, or relaxation of the arteries so that we decrease pressure. But those baroreceptors help to regulate in that way. Okay, and let's see, let's talk about chemoreceptors. Those receptors are sensitive really to hypoxemia, but they also are sensitive to hypercapnia and acidosis. Okay, and according to what the body needs, the vagus nerve is stimulated to activate that vasoconstrictive response and raise the blood pressure, or relax those vessels to decrease the blood pressure. All right. So whenever there's a decrease of blood volume in the body, there are these stretch receptors that are located in the vena cava in the right atrium. And they're really super sensitive to decreased volume and therefore decreased pressures in the body. So when a patient is hypovolemic, let's say they injured themselves and they're starting to bleed out, the stretch receptors in the blood vessels sense a reduced volume, and so they send messages to the brain that say we need to increase the heart rate so that we can keep our cardiac output high enough, because the volume in the cardiac output, volume times heart rate equals cardiac output. So if the volume is low, the only way we can keep our cardiac output somewhat normal is to increase the heart rate. Okay, so there are those stretch receptors that we need to think about as well. Whenever you have the kidneys involved, you're going to have, if the blood pressure is low, through the kidneys, okay, the blood flow through the kidneys will start to retain more water and more salt or sodium, so that the blood pressure will increase because of the increased volume in the vascular system from this water. And you know, if you're retaining sodium, you're going to retain fluid. So that's kind of how the kidneys respond. And also, it's going to activate that renin, angiotensin, aldosterone mechanism that we've talked about. So together, the vasoconstriction and the sodium retention is going to cause your blood pressure to increase or decrease according to what the body needs. And then, of course, also the vascular volume is going to be regulated by the release of that antidiuretic hormone, which is part of the endocrine system. So we talked about that some in chapter 11, but the antidiuretic hormone is going to either help you lose water or retain water, so that we have more volume or less volume in the vascular system. There are emotional factors that can also increase blood pressure, like excitement, pain, anger. And what this does is it stimulates the sympathetic nervous system to increase the blood pressure and the heart rate. Also, increased physical activity can increase the blood pressure and heart rate. Body temperature can affect the metabolic needs of the tissues and therefore influence the delivery of the blood to the tissues. So, like in hypothermia, where your temperature is low, the tissues require fewer nutrients and therefore the blood pressure falls because the tissues don't need the blood coming as much to feed the tissue. In hyperthermia, the metabolic requirements of the tissues are a lot higher, so the blood pressure and the heart rate rise, trying to get nutrients to those areas that are have increased metabolic requirements. I've included another video next, a little short video for you to watch about blood pressure, and then a couple of questions for you to answer. Super simple questions.